Welcome back to Part 2 of Fluency Instruction. This part deals with fluency assessment and practices and activities to promote and support reading fluency. Typically, disfluent readers may have deficits or breakdowns in any of these areas. Disfluent reading is easy to recognize. Reading can be painstakingly slow and laborious, with students pausing often to figure out words, many of which are words that most of their peers know automatically by sight. Often, so much attention is focused on reading the words that punctuation is ignored. Students read word by word with little or no attempts to read words as phrases, and there is little, if any, expression. Because reading is such a challenging task, many students have limited reading stamina and may find themselves drifting from the text and becoming distracted or reluctant to engage in reading texts and even giving up entirely. Usually, reading fluency is assessed by timing a child for 1 minute as they read orally, and then counting the number of words that were read correctly. DIBELS is one commonly used fluency assessment. DIBELS stands for Dynamic Indicators of Basic Literacy Skills. During a DIBELS reading fluency assessment, students usually read 3 short grade-level passages for 1 minute each. The middle score of the number of correctly read words is used as a child score for that period. This assessment is usually given 3 times a year, and benchmarks have been set for each time period. It is interesting to note that in moving from grade 2 to 3 and grades 3 to 4, etc., all have been adjusted to drop from the benchmark from the end of the school year to the beginning of the next school year to help compensate for summer loss. Where DIBELS looks exclusively at reading speed, NAEP's 4 levels of fluency also takes into account how the text is read, and this can be a very helpful tool for teachers and parents. Notice the attention that Level 4 readers give to reading in meaningful phrases and to preserving the text's message. Level 3 readers are still reading primarily in 3 or 4 word phrases, but there is little or no expression as they read. Level 2 readers are struggling with reading in phrases that reflect the text's meaning. Remember that we said that fluency is a bridge between word recognition and comprehension. This is a point at which that comprehension may be starting to break down. Level 1 readers are struggling as their sight vocabulary may be very limited, or it takes some time for them to recognize frequently used words, or they take considerable time to decode novel words, or they need time to pull up the meaning for words that they encounter. All of these behaviors put fluency and, consequently, comprehension at risk. As we said before, fluency is more than just speed. It is the processing of the text in a way that allows the reader to access and construct meaning. Research shows us that fluency can be improved. So, what does this look like in the classroom? Besides the obvious importance of modeling fluent reading through read-alouds and practicing and building sight word vocabulary, and speed and efficiency with phonic and structural analysis and the use of context clues, the next few slides will highlight some fluency interventions. Alternate oral reading is an easy activity to share with parents that they can do at home with students as well as students working with a peer or adult helpers in the school setting. Although tape recorders seem to be a thing of the past, CD computer programs are quickly making this activity more accessible to support students' development of reading fluency. Ever since Samuels first introduced using repeated readings to help improve fluency in the 1970s, it has been an accepted means to foster fluency. The choice of text is important, so these guidelines may be helpful. Text at an independent level should be the highest level at which a child can read something without any assistance. Usually the child has a word recognition rate of 95% or higher. Students will experience the most success and enjoy activities that help to build fluency when the text is a good choice. Here are suggestions for a variety of avenues to use for repeated readings to keep fluency activities fresh. Remember that one of the key components of repeated readings is the guided listening and providing immediate feedback to the student. Charting is also a powerful tool when conducted as described in the slide with any material that is appropriately leveled for the student. In the Wilson Fluency program, students chart their progress in reading and rereading individual lists of words from the story, lists of phrases from the story, and the short story itself, with scooped or cued phrasing that are all timed by the teacher. They do this 4 to 5 times using the same lists and story and chart their progress accordingly. Usually, there is daily improvement in their scores, which can be a tremendous motivator for struggling readers. There are a lot of benefits when charting a child's progress. Of course, a child's fluency with a given story usually improves with each reading, but it's interesting to note that research shows that each initial reading of the following stories also improves even before the child begins reading that selection multiple times. So in other words, a child's fluency with all this practice with one text usually carries over to the next text, so that his initial reading of the second text outperforms the initial reading of the first. Then, after several rereadings of the second text, the initial reading of the third text outperforms the initial reading of the second text, and so on. This demonstrates an improved fluency carryover to new texts. Here are some suggestions for charting and plotting goals for a child's reading fluency. Research shows that many students improve with repeated readings of words and phrases, as well as practice reading continuous text, as is done with the Wilson Fluency program that was previously described. Even as adults, we like the opportunity to read something silently before reading aloud, or at least being familiar with the material, vocabulary, and/or content of what we will be reading. Here are several steps that can be taken to support struggling readers to find that comfort level. We mentioned phrase-cued reading earlier in our discussion of prosody. If this is an area of need for students, instruction of phrase-cued reading may be helpful. Alice returns from her wonderland with scooping of phrases, but you can also use slash marks to indicate a break between phrases instead of scooping. Remember that comprehension should always be the goal, and not speed. Many times with fluency tasks, students need to be reminded of this. To become a fluent reader, students must become automatic with their word recognition and decoding skills, but they must also attend to appropriate phrasing of the text, which underscores the meaning-making process that is ideally going on as they read. Many programs and materials have been developed to help promote reading fluency. Here are just a few. Here are a few points to sum up interventions for developing fluency.